Welcome back to Get Your House in Order, the podcast that cuts through the noise. And we try to talk about what really matters and what really means to build wealth and a life of substance, structure, and staying in power. Today's guest is someone that I've admired for many, many years, not only just for her brilliance, but for her tenacity. Leila Rafi is a partner at Macmillan, and she's a friend. And that's the first and most important thing. But also, she's an expert in capital markets and governance and financial regulation. More than that, she's someone who, in a world that has conspired to make it complicated but not impossible, she's found a way. And she understands how power perception isn't just a conversation about business. It's really finding your identity, finding the confidence, and what it really means to show up with purpose. So let's dive in. Welcome, Leila.
Thank you, Elkie. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, welcome, and please tell us. This is a very, very much interesting podcast that I've been waiting to have for a long time because you're someone who has built a name for yourself in an industry that hasn't necessarily been easy for women. And probably your biggest mentors have been men. So that's where everything starts uh, braiding itself into a fascinating story, which is your story. What has the journey taught you about self perception, the power of confidence, even when you don't feel it?
It's a really good question. I feel like the industry has really evolved since I started. So when I started, it's strange, but I never really thought about the fact that there was not a lot of diversity. I was surrounded by men for the most part, and I got many opportunities from the men that I worked with. And so many of them were like mentors and sponsors for the years I was a junior lawyer. And I learned quite a bit from them. I think that it took me a long time to step into my career and actually feel confidence about it. And I don't think that happened for a very long time. I think I was just busy trying to hone my technical expertise and do everything that everyone wanted. And then finally, I had a chance to catch my breath. And then I actually had a few very meaningful leadership coaches that helped me kind of elevate to the next level in my career.
So I've always admired the fact that in a very fast paced environment, you have never ever resorted to the victim mentality. Has it been easy? No. Has it been a straight line? For sure not. But when people meet you, they often see a sharp, composed, professional, Instagram star. But what's the one thing people would be surprised to learn about you behind the feet?
I think that's a really good point. My past has definitely not been linear. And I've had a few major bumps in my career, things I never foresaw, twists and turns that were ideal. But I actually have never kind of let that get in the way of my ultimate goal, which was just building a really crisp, meaningful career. I see some failures are actually what strengths in my career and what allowed me to move forward with like authenticity. Because I think if I didn't have any struggles, I wouldn't feel the same way. Like the first time I didn't get what I wanted, I didn't remember that with so much clarity. I think that I sometimes am guilty of only posting the positive things or the wins or meaningful things, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram. And I always joke that like I don't post working late at night till 2 a.m. or, a struggle or losing a client file or losing a pitch. But those things still happen. I just think now I have the breadth of experience to know that they aren't fatal. Nothing in your career is fatal. So, I see students all the time or young lawyers all the time, and they may not get the job that they want, or something in their personal life doesn't work out. And then they think it's all for naught. Like everything that they've done has amounted to this and there's no path forward. Whereas I've learned a career in law in particular has so many opportunities, particularly for women, particularly for diverse women these days, that I just think is one path closes or takes you on a bit of a diversion that's probably actually going to lead to something more meaningful in your own career. My own career elevated dramatically when I switched law firms from McCarthy's to Macmillan in ways I never would have foreseen. I was still the same lawyer doing relatively the same work, but all of a sudden I had awards. I had way more invitations to speak on panels. My career became more impactful. And I actually think I needed to make the move to make that happen at the time that I did, which was a debt bobbers and so
And I hear that you took ownership of your own career and you found your place. And you found a place where your message, your value, what you bring to the table is recognized, respected, and valued, right? It's this really, really finding your fit. And it's not that something when you're in a place where you're just misunderstood, that can be possibly undervalued, but
Yes,
nobody will come to save you. You need to own it. You need to get up and say, I don't fit here. And it's not that it's a bad
absolutely.
place. It's not the right
Absolutely.
height for me.
Absolutely. I think platform is everything. I think I always say all of these Bay Street firms have great resources. They have amazing clients. They have wonderful tools for training. Networking is fantastic. There are more people that are interested in helping you in your career than not. There's always bad people out there, and they're everywhere, but they're not the majority in my experience. And so, finding a platform where you feel valued and where you feel heard and where you can kind of be you, I think is the most important thing. And sometimes, as you spend a lot of years at one place, it's hard to kind of elevate to the next level, but if you move, then you can start fresh. Like when I came to Macmillan, I was encouraged to do all the things I love. All the community stuff in relation to cancer research, all of the teaching, all of the other things around my billable process that I really enjoy doing that making me like I was kind of given a space for all of that. And I think that actually has seen a better lawyer get a day because I think that job are very hard, as are a lot of jobs, so particularly for young people today, that I think you need to have that possibility in your career, or else I then yes, need that to put some present value. And it just depends about the area of parent. By copying it to someone in a way that you really deserve, in a way that all of us deserves.
Like we're our toughest critics. And when you decide to make a change, I think our biggest fear or initial fear is not to be accepted or to be judged. So when you made the change from a great law firm to a great law firm where you actually fit better and worked for you, what made what made you take that calculated risk and say, I'm going for it? Because this is something that all the people that are listening to us, particularly women in their careers, and these are high powered jobs and changing jobs, changing firms, changing the thing that you thought you were headed this way, but ended up being the other way. When in your decision process did you decide I'm doing this and I feel I need to change? When were you most vulnerable with yourself?
I think a series of things happened in my life. A very close friend of mine passed away very unexpectedly of cancer. And that had not happened before. And so that startled me into thinking that things can change by the day. And the things I take for granted, like health and time, are not necessarily guaranteed. I didn't get the promotion I wanted in the time frame that I wanted, and so that was disappointing to me, but more than disappointing, it was incredibly surprising, because usually if I put effort into something, I would kind of see the results in a positive way, but I don't have kids, I don't have siblings, and so part of that lesson is just the life lesson that I brings it a bit later than others. those 2 things happened, and I think my personal life was going through a transition, and I thought, "It's kind of now or never." So, either I make the shift and I try and find a place that I feel that I grow, or I'm going to have to redesign my, goals and my Ds around my career, and I wasn't ready to do that. And so kind of serendipitously, I met who then became the CEO of Macmillan, and we had a casual coffee. And then he set me up to speak to the head of the capital markets group, who's still the head of the capital markets group. And then it just kind of fell into place. Like I didn't provide a resume, like I didn't do a formal application. As with so many things in my life, it's soft connections. And that's what I always say to people is those connections that you have that lead to real opportunities. So it kind of fell into my path in a way I didn't foresee. And it took me a couple of months to think about it. I had actually gone on a divergence at McCarthy's and I started working on a key clients. And so I had lost a lot of my capital markets practice, but I was also really missing that. So this was an opportunity to kind of go back to the capital market work I wanted, but it was a risk. And I think I just spoke honestly to the firm about the fact that it may fail or it may succeed. So nobody was under any illusions. I didn't come with huge promises or huge expectations. I had kind of adjusted everything in my mind. And then I started from scratch. And I think with the help of the firm and my own tenacity. I think it all kind of fell together. I would say it took probably 2 to 3 years, and the first 9 or 10 months were painful, not because the firm wasn't welcoming, but because after spending a decade somewhere, you get used to it, and then you go somewhere else, and the first few weeks, you think, "What the hell have I done? I'm I need to run back." But you kind of have to just push through that. And I think people surprise themselves in terms of how much they can do when they're faced with challenges. Like humans are resilient. You see different parts of your personality and strength come out when you're given different opportunities. Like I just think you flex different muscles. And so I kind of started on a path that hugely evolved my career and who I was as a person. And now it's been almost longer or it's been now longer that I've been at Macmillan than McCarthy's, and it's so hard for me to believe because it's gone by in a flash, and now I can't imagine not having have joined Macmillan, but at the time, in my mind, it was, it wasn't nothing was a guarantee, but that's kind of the beauty of law and the beauty of having a good, solid graduate degree. You have skills, you have access to resources, there are so many opportunities out there in law, outside of law, like, you used to practice law, then you went and started this asset management firm. I mean, all of your legal training has been a huge asset to you growing your business and being an entrepreneur. Like, I actually just think there are so many opportunities with this degree that these are just kind of stages of your career. And these days, people do move law firms, they switch careers. If anything, life experience actually has more value now than it used to. Even when we look at law school applications and students, we really give meaning to people who have had other careers or other degrees and haven't just followed what used to be kind of expected of a career in law, if that makes sense.
No, totally. And the other thing I see is a friend of mine once said, you are where you need to be to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're trying to force a square peg in a round hole because that's what you thought it would be the path. And that's what you thought would be the way you would go. And those were the people you had to be with. And then life has a very funny way of smacking you back into reality and realizing that there's something better for you. And as long
Yeah.
as you don't stop moving, I think if you look back today, you're like, aren't you glad that everything else didn't work out for me?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I thank my lucky stars all the time that I actually didn't get what I wanted at various points of my career because those were the actual hidden gems that were the best things for my growth. And at the time, they were the most painful. But without them, I kind of think I wouldn't be where I am today. And I always I have to laugh a little when younger or more junior people get devastated when they don't get a particular job or something doesn't go their way, because I just know it'll work out and it'll be okay, but it's very hard to communicate that to someone who has a plan. When I didn't make equity partner at McCarthy's, I remember someone who I respect highly, who is continues to be one of my mentors and sponsors today. He gave me a book, Plan B, which Sheryl Sandberg wrote, after her Lean In book, and it was in part about her husband just dropping dead and having to, like, refigure out her life. And I just remember how I felt reading it because I just think nothing is a guarantee, and you can always have a plan, but just be prepared for the plan never to go as you think it will. And there are good elements to that and really challenging elements to that, but from the challenges, you just learn and you continue to grow, and you actually wouldn't have known the difference had you not had the challenge. You would have just continued on without the learning that comes along with sometimes not achieving a goal in the way that you first thought you would.
And I see that too. As you know, we do a lot of planning for lawyers, and I do come across many women that were so fixated with breaking the glass ceiling and leaning in that they lost themselves to the profession. And
Yeah,
we're not here to judge, but it's an incredibly empowering exercise when you think of financial planning and getting your house in order and all that stuff. But unless people could tell me who they are without the title, a financial plan is not going to reflect them. I need the plan to reflect who they are, what they stand for, what's important to them, the value they want to give to their wealth, the dynamics that the family has evolved and how it works for the family and so on. And when you define yourself by your career, you're entering a very risky territory. And we talk about
absolutely.
that all the time. And I think that's something that you only will understand when you're meant to understand it. And it's not
Yes.
necessarily just a matter of maturity. It's timing, it's being in the right place and the right circumstances. And it's also allowing yourself to go slow to go fast and understand that things may or may not work for you. That's fine, but keep going. But never lose who you are. In terms of leadership, you mentor so many people, you organize groups, you're everywhere, all the time. From your seat at the table, what do you think that actually moves the needle for women in business? And what's just window dressing and what's real?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an amazing question. I think so often young lawyers in particular are just focused on getting all their dockets in, doing their billable time, and the goal is just becoming senior associate and then partner and then just forgetting about themselves in the interim. What makes them happy, what fulfills them, what's happening in their personal life, who they're spending time with, how they're spending their time. And so I think knowing who you are is such a huge element of understanding what will make you happy and being a positive contributor both to the industry and to your own life. So what I actually like about your business is the comprehensive lens that it gives women in particular, because you ask questions about, what legacy do you wanna have? And not legacy in terms of what your children are about, because so many professional women these days don't have children, but they still have a legacy and they still wanna have a legacy. So, what kind of drives you? What fuels you? Is it charitable causes? Is it, a scholarship at a university? Is it teaching? What are those things? So, you actually have to sit down and think about it. You have to think about, what kind of life you wanna achieve and what you wanna leave behind, and I think many women are just so focused on getting through the day that they miss the boat on that, and they think of it when there's a crisis, when there's, like, a divorce or there's a death or there's something else. So, I think one of the things that can help women, particularly more junior women in their career, is thinking about these things earlier rather than later, so being proactive, not reactive. And actually putting their hand up and sharing what they're doing. I mean, a lot of people I know don't actually use LinkedIn, for example, Or, I've heard women sometimes feel uncomfortable like sharing information about what they're doing. But I always say, men do it all the time. They just do it informally. It's kind of ingrained into their system, and they're usually kind of talking about things that haven't even happened yet, whereas women are always a few steps behind and thinking through too many things on an analytical level and kind of not sharing information that may be helpful to others because it just doesn't come naturally to them in the same way. And so I find that being active in your own career and life is really important. No one's going to care as much as about your career as you will. Like someone actually gave me that advice when I was younger, and they also said if you don't respect your time, no one else will. So, if you're trying to do everything for everyone and you've lost yourself along the way, like there is no one who's going to actually save you from that. You're going to actually have to put up your hand and drop boundaries. So, I try and do a lot of the mentoring to students in particular or young lawyers because I think it's meaningful for them. And some of them say it makes a difference if they see someone who looks like them or has a lifestyle in which they want to have. Like they envision, being a corporate lawyer as just being in your office all the time and not doing anything else, or not being active in the community, and it doesn't have to be that way. So much of it is just sharing information and providing young people, but particularly women, with the tools to just make more informed decisions, so that they're not kind of play catch up in their 40s or 50s. Not that it's not possible to do that, it's just way more painful because it takes a long time.
Most situations that are riskiest or are when you lose yourself to a career, when
Yes.
you're trying to deliver to a standard that nobody set for you, to be clear,
Nobody else.
because
Mm,
nobody's busy looking after you. You're the only one looking after yourself.
that's right.
And when you're trying to impress I mean, obviously you need to deliver results, but results speak for themselves. But if you're trying to personally impress and bend backwards and give up your personal time and give up the few little moments where you can define who you are and what you stand for and what's important to you and what you're willing to negotiate or settle on or not settle on, etc. Nobody will. And then you turn into a shell of a human being.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
then you're
sorry,
not
but there's
you're
no
not good
value
for
there.
anyone. Yeah.
There's no
You're
value there.
d
So
there's no value, and you feel burned out all the time, and you feel that you're failing your family, whatever that family may look like, whether it's spouse, kids, parents, pet, friends, whatever, and it makes you feel like you're not delivering enough at work, and that's
and
just
it's
not the case.
and it's not being selfish, but it's looking after yourself, and it's a fine line that women really struggle with. So I know you're a top fundraiser for Princess Margaret. I know you have Hermie, a beautiful little cat that is your love and soul. But you continue to advise high stake clients. You're in there, you're working on massive deals, and you've gone through major change. In those moments, what anchors you? What keeps you clear headed and aligned?
Now that I'm a little bit older, I think, I always think about the fact that I've gotta remember to catch my breath, that I've gotta remember to take care of my mental and physical health, because without those things, I will not be functioning at optimal level. I always joke like my 30s was just working and trying to stand upright and not fall over from lack of sleep and not eating properly and drinking too much wine and doing too many things for too many people. Like, now I'm much better at drawing boundaries, and kind of valuing myself and my time, and doing things like working out and, doing things regularly that I think give me positive fuel to kind of face my day. So now when I have difficult negotiations or I have a hard time at work or something challenging happens, I have like the experience to draw on to know that it's not going to completely damage anything or be fatalistic. Like, I think less in those terms now that I'm older, because you kind of just realize everyone's out there trying to do their best. And there's gonna be better days than other days. And, I've actually surrounded myself now with a community of professional women, including yourself, who have accomplished so much in their careers and education wise, but have had um, different life stories. And when you bring those people together, it's powerful. Like we have the Women's Professional Development Group where we share experiences or leadership training, or we talk about the various challenges that we may be facing. And I find that the industry is just a bit softer and that there's room for those discussions. And it just makes us a little more real. And so I do have difficult days. I do have days that are 18-hour days, or, I think, how much longer am I going to be able to have a practice that is so demanding? But because of all the other things I do around my practice now, I feel much more fulfilled than I did in my 30s, where I was just trying to run to kind of satisfy everyone. And now I don't say yes to all the speaking panels. I pass those opportunities on. I sometimes am not able to do all the things I necessarily want to do, but I have to kind of think about how to space them out. I will sometimes do mentoring over virtual chats, not in person. Like there are small things that you can do to kind of manage your life and just make sure you're showing up for the people that you care about, including your clients, and making sure that you are trying to create a life that's sustainable because it's all about sustainability, right? We're trying to ensure that we have longevity. Like that's why all of these popular podcasts are happening now and books. And so I really feel that there's lots of tools and resources out there to really assist people in creating a life that is meaningful for them. And part of that is their wealth management and their insurance and their wills. If it cannot just be your career, because that will never be enough to sustain you. Just like I think, for me, it wouldn't have been sufficient just to kind of have focused on family things. Not to say it wouldn't work for someone else, but I needed to have a whole bunch of different buckets that I was spending my time in because that's kind of how I excel and what makes me me.
So, how do you define success for yourself now?
I used to define success when I was younger as just titles at work or how much money someone makes. And now I actually define success by the impact that I leave on others. So, am I actually contributing in a meaningful way? And if I feel that I am, that's when I feel most fulfilled and most successful. It's not necessarily my career. I'm very grateful for my career, but I feel like my career has given me the ability to interact with a whole bunch of people and to actually create all these different relationships. And so I think, kindness and treating other people with kindness is the most satisfying thing that you can have in your life. And that brings me a lot of peace.
I find many women are, or I think not just women, I think in general, every professional has a hardcore driven career. I think financially it becomes defining until they figure out that they're going to be okay, that they and their loved ones
Yeah.
will be okay. Once you
Yeah.
get there, whether you have a rough idea or you're clear, which is what we're trying to do, it becomes about relevance and true legacy. So you have an incredible network. You have an incredible reach. You have relationships. How do you build trust in professional circles? And what do you think people get wrong when they're trying to be well connected? The networking, here's your card.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I've heard this many, many times. I even have a friend who always says, you ask people for things and they always do it for you. But when I ask, they say no. Why, why, why? And I always remind her that it's my curiosity to learn about people and build a relationship, build a friendship, find commonalities. I do that naturally. It just so happens that now it's valued in law and relationships actually matter because clients will go to different law firms and it's no longer we're going to this firm because it's this firm. And so, over the years when I've met people and I've gotten to know them, I do things that are very important to them. So, for example, if they have a child that's being bullied, if I read an article in the newspaper about bullying and different resources available, I'll just send it off to them. I won't send it off with the expectation that they'll return it with giving me work, but they end up doing that. One of my clients is in Dubai now, and I met her at McCarthy's. We were just two people that would have lunch together. And then we became friends and I stayed in touch. And she went through some challenging times in her personal life. And I was there throughout that process. And, now she's a big client of mine. Another one of my clients I met 21 years ago at a restaurant through another client. And after many, many years, all of a sudden, he's one of my biggest clients and he's one of my most loyal clients. Another one of my clients I met at a bar when I was 21 years old, and, we re-met in the industry years later, and I think his incumbent counsel, annoyed him on a file, and then he just called and he passed all his work to me. Like, some of the connections I've made that have led to the clients I have were not made with the original intention of them becoming a client. And so that's, I think, the most important piece. And for my cancer stuff, every year I raise 30 to $40,000 just from individuals who are friends in my network. I don't have corporate donations that's a very big number because people just kind of jump to the cyst and they know how important what causes to me that usually, I've shown up to them in some meaningful way. So I think it takes years to build a valuable network. I think it helps if you've been at different universities and different law schools and you move around a bit, like that also helps. But it's keeping in touch with people, sending a text, like sending a handwritten note. I mean, I had 10 women over to my house for Persian New Year recently. I have all these new Persian friends, something that's very new for me. And I wrote them all a handwritten card at the end of the evening, and they received it a week later. And they were just, each of them was so touched because nobody does that anymore. But like, I just do it because I think it's impactful. So I think, relationships take a really long time, but the real value of a network comes when the person actually feels like they know you with or without their job, or the importance around them, around their success, monetary success or otherwise. Like, do you care about them as a human being, or are you just looking to get something from them? I think that's the difference.
And I think that that comes out very quickly. When people are not authentic, it comes out. And I find it when you give, it's a tricky thing because I'm a giver. And generally speaking, I give and I give and I give. But there was a point in my life where I realized that I was giving from a place of exhaustion, that I
Yeah.
was giving more than I could actually deliver with impact. So you have to
Yes.
go back to headquarters and figure out, okay, where are my boundaries? What am I okay giving? And give it with no strings attached.
Yeah.
And I
No
think that's the magic
expectation.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's no expectations. It's because you actually want to do something. And you don't resent it. Like, you don't say that you'll do something and then secretly start to resent it because it's just another thing on the list of things that you need to do. You have to kind of see what feels real to you and then kind of decide accordingly. Like, and also I say, put yourself in situations where you meet people. Like, it doesn't have to be just a cocktail party that you go to that's kind of awkward. Like, do things that you like, whether it's joining a book club or going to a talk at the university. Like, you can build soft connections anywhere. It really, like, every day we have a ton of opportunities to build connections. It can happen in a store. It can happen if you ask someone for directions. Like, there are people willing to build and everywhere. That's always been my experience.
And it's also whether you're willing to allow the experience to flow into your life as opposed to
That's
resisting
right.
resisting. So
Yeah, you
you've
have
gone
to
through
be
a
open.
journey. You've shifted your career from what you thought would be to where it is now, that you're even happier with where you are now, and unexpectedly success, but planned, but unexpected, but welcome. So the journey continues. We all are human. We want to grow. We want to continue going down that path. What's your internal battle these days? Where are you struggling to keep your house in order? And it could be personal, professional. Where's Layla today? What's your next challenge? Which monster are you attacking?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that a lot. For my teaching, I was teaching at TMU before I actually took on a teaching gig at Western for the fall. So I'm worried a little bit logistically about that because it's a little far away, but it'll be partly online, which is good. I am worried a bit as my parents are aging. Obviously, you start to think about mortality in different ways. I've had friends with some health problems again, so always a reminder that you have to have everything in order. I did my will during COVID, and I think I have to redo it because circumstances have changed, and so people that you pinpoint grow up, and so you have to constantly think about those things. um, I think, I want to make sure that I continue to be a meaningful presence in the capital market space, that I continue to develop my relationships with the regulators and with others, that I continue speaking up, and making sure I'm trying to access younger people. I still feel a lot of happiness from the billable work. So I still love being a lawyer. I've been asked that question many times. Are you sick of it? Do you hate it? I don't. I really like it. So I'm just looking forward to the future. I don't have any huge challenges, I think, or mental blocks, but I now never hesitate at calling on resources. So I never hesitate at calling, people like you who have a suite of services to kind of assess people to put their life in order. I don't hesitate calling a therapist. I don't hesitate, taking a full day and taking the day off. Like I'm taking Friday off. I decided I had an appointment in the morning and I'm going to take it off. I'm more inclined to actually do those things than when I was younger, where I wasn't really connected to how I felt. So I was just kind of in robot mode and I was doing everything for everyone. I didn't really stop and think, like, how do I feel about this today? I would probably like to move some of my cancer work into kind of a different platform or different venue. I've been doing the walk now for a decade, so maybe it's time to shift and concentrate on something to bring attention to cancer in a different way. Those are the things that I think about day to day. I'd like to pay my mortgage off as quickly as possible. I'm doing a good job.
And then these days, it's interesting. So, Layla, before we close, who are two women that you look up to that I should interview next? Putting you on the spot.
Um, Oh, that's a
And
really
why?
good
And
question.
why?
Oh, that's a really good question. 2 women that I look up to. Um, well, interestingly, one is, my cousin in the States. She is a scientist, and she used to work at NASA and now works for the military. She is amazing because she's bright and she's educated, but she's also really stepped into a different role because her sister, who's also my cousin, got dementia at 56 years old. So she's quite compromised now and she's in a home. But her sister, who is the cousin I'm super close to, shows up for her almost on a daily basis. And so I have a lot of respect for her. She has her career and, she's carved out a huge amount of time to take care of her family because her parents have passed away. So she's one. The other is, my former leadership coach, Judy Sims. So she does all this work around the Expansive Woman Project, and she provides tools to professional women, mainly to professional women, to help them elevate their careers. So I went to her when I was having a really hard time when I transitioned to the firm. And I heard her speak on imposter syndrome and I was quite moved. And I hired her for a 6-week course that was incredibly impactful. And so I think that she is very important to a lot of different professional women on their journeys because she doesn't help them. She stays away from the word help. She just gives them the resources and tools they need to further excel. And she talks a lot about what your values are and she brings you back to basic principles. So Judy's incredible. She's done a lot more for the legal industry now. I sit on her advisory board for this project she has, but a lot of the resources are free. I think she's amazing. So she's accessible, she's funny, she's smart, and she always wants to learn, which is a really nice trait to have.
Well, Layla, thank you. Thank you for being unapologetically smart, insightful, beautiful, and honest. And you're funny too. So this
Oh,
was an
thanks, Nancy.
absolute masterclass in showing up fully, professionally, and personally. So for
Thank
those of you
you.
listening, if this episode resonated with you, please share with someone who needs a reminder that power and vulnerability can and should coexist. So follow Layla on LinkedIn, connect with her. She has a trillion followers, but she'll make sure that you're special. And see what leadership looks in motion. And as always, subscribe for more conversations that help you get your house in order. And one powerful story at a time will show you how to do this. Layla, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.